Hello, and welcome back to The Stanley Parable 2. And we're picking up right where we left off, which is what happens after we pick up all of the Stanley figurines. Because although the narrator said nothing happens, I was promised by a conspicuous writing in the boardroom that actually something huge happens. So let's see. Oh, this is actually
Stanley, I'm
very
sorry,
different.
but I have to put a pause on things. It's those figurines, those figglers. I haven't stopped thinking about them since you nabbed every last one. Wasn't it just the most intrinsically fulfilling moment of your entire life?
Yes.
Didn't
Yes.
it fill you to the brim with inner richness?
Yes.
I know we're supposed to be telling a story, but won't you please indulge me with one more trip back to the memory zone? I would love nothing more than to revisit the figurines just one more time.
Okay, I guess, yeah. The memory zone was pretty cool. When Stanley found the collectibles. You know, so much of this game's theme is about sort of revisiting things that you've experienced already. With fresh perspective, though, which I think can be very healthy. Like, obviously, therapeutically, I encourage a lot of self-reflection, but I do think that there's... it's possible that you can sort of do too much. Too much to glorify things where it interrupts forward progress. And some of the narrators reminiscing on that kind of thing, like, I don't know. Maybe it's not the most healthy thing. Like, okay, the memory zone, that's cool. But like, again? We're back here again?
Here's where it all began. The first collectible. Back then, we had no idea of how many of them we'd find. Sure, it said 6 right there on the screen, but how could we know for certain? We were so innocent. We'll never be like that again, Stanley.
No, we won't. What? What? This is taking away my accomplishment. There can't be more. I already found them.
And here was a second Stanlerine. You found this one all on your own, just by poking around by the red and blue doors. You did that, Stanley. I'll be honest, back then I had no faith in you to find any of them, let alone 6. But you continue to surprise me in all sorts of mundane, unremarkable ways.
Okay, so... what the hell? Are we just revisiting all the...
Okay.
all the Stanleys?
Quiz. Which of these rooms was the room you found your third mini Stan? Can you remember?
I think it was the warehouse one.
Hey, that's exactly right. It was here in the warehouse. It was the third one. You picked it up, and then after that, you had 3 of them. I'm glad these moments are so crystal clear in your memory, but I shouldn't be surprised. After all, science tells us that it's impossible to forget your third time doing anything.
I don't know if that checks out. Why are we doing this, narrator? Like...
Let's see, what came next? Oh yes, we found a figly in this pink room. Oh, well, I can't actually say I remember being in this room, but it's here in the memory zone, so it must have happened.
No, I think the next one was the one under the stairs. Bro, it's time to move on.
This was the 5th mini Stan, and this one was really something special. It was in the boss's bathroom. I remember it so clearly. In fact, because this one is particularly special to me, I made a little video to commemorate the occasion. Enjoy.
Oh my god, it's like Windows Media Player Effects. This is great. Holy shit, the star transition. Wow. It's like a pre-YouTube video.
Takes you back, doesn't it? I spent a lot of time making that video, but it was 8 minutes I wouldn't have spent on anything else.
Okay, narrator, like, what is the purpose of this exercise? We're just retreading old ground here. This is like being in an argument we've had a dozen times. It's like going back over something that we never got closure with. Like, wasn't that the whole point of collecting them? It was like, that was the one thing that we completed. The one thing that you could actually complete in this game where things are constantly looping back on itself. But I guess that was not really a satisfying point of closure, was it? And what is a satisfying point of closure anyways? It's a very sort of loaded word. It means a lot of things to a lot of people. And I think it sometimes just gets sort of conflated with resolution, which resolution could be a kind of closure for sure. But in the places where an absence of closure feels the most painful, like in our relationships, resolution is very rare. And so to me, at least, I think less of closure being about resolving things, but really more about acceptance. To me, closure is a point from which we move on, right? Whether that happens naturally or if it's just a decision.
And then, Stanley, then we came to the last collectible, the final figurine, right here behind the boss's office. This memory is the most distinct and clear in my mind, perhaps because it was the one that happened more recently than all the others. Who can truly say how the mind works? All I know is that this is the moment where you picked up a Figley and I thought to myself, yes, that's all of them. They're all collected. It was a moment unlike any other. Except for the other moments picking up figurines, which it was exactly like.
Stanley looks fucking depressed on the figure as well. Okay. I got them all. And, you know, I've been looking for a sense of closure throughout this playthrough, but maybe I've been looking for like the wrong kind. You know, I'm like used to games providing a resolution because they have credits, obviously, like it's a very defined sort of resolution. But with games that don't particularly end, I think the only kind of closure we're going to find is the one that's more related to acceptance, like an acceptance that you've seen enough, done enough, and that the line you draw on where you're satisfied with things is really quite personal and subjective. There may not be something that necessarily confirms that that line has even been crossed by the game. But I feel like this is at least taking me somewhere very different than a typical run.
And then there was no more. Because we've caught up to the present moment. Nothing left to do but move onward into the future. Goodbye, memory zone.
Okay.
No, I'm not done. I'm not ready to move on. Stop the loading screen. Isn't there
What?
a way we can stay here, keep enjoying these figurines? Let's just go backwards. We'll do the memory zone again from the opposite direction. See how that feels.
No. I mean, the narrator is like so much of the narrator's story has been about struggling to accept what actually is. That the world changes depending on what choices we make as Stanley. That the story he tried to craft won't always play out exactly as he wants. That even when it does, we're still going to loop back around and go through it again. And so I absolutely see the narrator's story and Stanley's being one of, like, they are kind of two archetypes of people. I see them as being kind of analogous to being in a relationship, who are in like this never-ending cycle of working on problems but never really making progress in them. And many relationships turn out like this. And to me, like, part of the struggle with accepting is you have to ask, like, what is it that I need to accept then? And what it often comes down to is that, like, closure isn't a rational thing. It's an emotional thing. And if it's an emotional thing, it really has a lot to do with our needs. What need is not being met that feels like I'm always searching for something to meet that need? The fundamental problem is often that we're trying to get that need met by the other person. We struggle to find closure when we try to get that need, whatever it is, from someone else, instead of getting it from ourselves. And so, of course, we never seem to find closure when acceptance is not possible, because it requires you getting that need met by someone else. Well, I need her to understand my side of things. Otherwise, I can't move on. So I'm going to keep calling her. I'm going to keep going back over what happened, why we broke up. I need him to admit all the things that he did wrong so that he understands how I feel and how it affected me. Like, I'm going to keep staying in contact so that I get this closure. Like, but you cannot get those needs met by someone else always. And like, what is that need? The need is not necessarily for closure. It's for understanding. Like, usually, I want someone to understand my experience, or I want us to agree on where the experience is if it feels like it's over. And like, that is such a hard thing to find in relationships, is acceptance that some of these needs really need to be met internally. Not to say that, like, getting someone to understand you is not worthwhile, but it's an understanding, like, your own self, your own emotions, that is really needed if you want to move on. Because closure is not something someone else can give to you. Like, I can't give it to the narrator. He can't give it to me. We are constantly at odds with one another. Closure has to be something that you sort of decide for yourself. And that decision becomes accessible to you when you do more of that internal work. The other thing I think is really important for closure is giving yourself permission to move on. We don't have this when we say, I need this need to be met by someone else. Like, I'm not giving myself permission to move on because they need to understand. We need to go over this again.
Okay, yes, the back of the boss's office. I remember this. I must say, of all the figurines we looked at in our initial tour of the memory zone, this one is the most distinct.
Yes, we just did this.
Let's keep going. I want more.
Are we just going to do this forever, narrator? You and I just in this toxic relationship? Like, I've come to feel differently about him. Again, I just mean in the context of my role play. As Brady, I think he's great. I've always felt he's great. But when I'm like, I've thought differently about him. I'm talking about, like, the character of me playing this game. Okay. I'm going to stop qualifying that now because we're sort of wrapping this up. I figured it'd be clear by now. But I have come in character to feel very differently about the narrator, which is that we were initially very antagonistic to one another. But I've realized that he and I both have been trying to get needs met from one another. For Stanley, maybe it was at first about maybe exploring this life outside of the boring job. And for narrator, this need to, have his creation play out the way he wants. he can't do that without me, and I can't do much without him sort of opening doors and allowing things to happen either.
Here's where I made that video. Don't you remember the video we watched? Yes, I love that video.
My God. And so, like, I'm no longer upset with him or hating of him. I've come to accept that there are aspects of our relationship that will not always align, right? Certain needs can't be met by one another, despite us being very highly codependent in how we move through this world. And this is, you know, kind of what's happening in a lot of our relationships as well. And I just feel like...
Remember the pink room, Stanley? Still no memory of this one. Good room, though. A solid room.
I feel like whatever Stanley and the narrator represent for each other, it is just really still being stuck in... Like, who is the narrator? What is his identity without Stanley? Does Stanley have an identity without the narrator? Is he even... Like, can he even exist without the narrator in this reality? Like, pretty much every decision we make is only because the narrator makes it possible by narrating. And so that just creates a lot of codependence. And to me, that means that, you know, no matter what we've tried as Stanley, the game just resets. So it really has to be... It has to be the narrator who decides, in this case, if he wants closure. And he's not going to get it from me.
These were a treat to hunt down. You know, if there had been any kind of reward for finding all of these, it really would have neutered the intrinsic joy of collecting them. I'm very glad we resisted the temptation.
Holy shit, man. Okay, I guess we're literally just going backwards.
This was our second Figley. Don't you remember? Yes, I remember it too. The past is truly a wonderful thing. Why does anyone ever choose to leave it? Keep going.
The deceptive comfort
the very first one
of
we
the
found
past.
In the exhibit where I introduced you to the Figlarines.
Yeah.
I want more memories, Stanley. I want to keep going. What else?
Why?
What came before this?
Why do you want any of this anymore? I feel like we're now at the point where one of us in this analogous relationship dynamic has like found peace and acceptance and closure and permission to move on, that being me, and the other person still trying to get this need met by me. And that's all I want for you, narrator. Like, now that I've learned to sympathize with you, again, in character, now that I've learned to sympathize with you, and I can see that, you know, maybe we are good on our own, but not the best together. I also want you to move on. Like, maybe you can flourish without Stanley. Maybe this has run its course.
Look, it's the terrible new content that we were originally sold on. I remember hating it back then, but time does put a rosy filter on everything. In fact, I dare say I'm actually quite fond of it now. Look how much fun the past is. I want more memories.
I feel like he's even twisting himself up into distortions about how things were. Like, this sucked for you, man. You're so attached to our past together that you're, like, abandoning the actual values you have. Like, at least who you were when we first came to the jump circle had some conviction and was like, I don't like this. Like, there was more independence in that. But clinging to our declining relationship and trying to, like, revise your views to, it just feels hollow. We're too attached.
Oh, yes, the two doors. Who could have forgotten that? A classic memory, this one.
It's all played out, man.
And before everything else, there was your office.
Yeah.
Anything else? Was there something that came before your office? There's something I feel I can remember. I can remember. Yes, I'm remembering something now. I remember before this whole story got started. Back then I was different. I used to make big decisions. I was passionate. I was skeptical. I weighed each decision with profound thoughtfulness. And then somewhere along the way, I stopped making decisions. I became lazy, and I came up with a character named Stanley to do my thinking for me. He would make the decisions. He would decide which way to go. I would cheer him on as he collected figurines for no reason. Why did I invent Stanley? Was I lonely? Yes, perhaps that's it. Perhaps I needed to imagine I had companionship. And Stanley really did make for a wonderful companion, even if he was a fiction. But I suppose it's grown old. I want to think for myself again. I want to go back to how it used to be. Yes, I can be on my own again. I can do it. I'll be stronger this time. I'll take care of myself. I don't need Stanley anymore. Oh, but he truly was so much fun to play with. You know what? Since we're in the memory zone, how about one more good memory? Let's go back just once and give Stanley one more run of the office, and then I'll retire him for good. I did enjoy telling his story so very much. Okay, here we go. This is the story of a man named Stanley.
This is the story of a man named Stanley. Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427. Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year. And although others might have considered it soul-rending, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy. And then one day, something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow. No one had showed up to give him instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened, this complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office.
What? Did he just admit that he made this all up? That Stanley is a figly of his imagination? What did he say? Like, I used to be a person who made decisions, and then I sort of created Stanley to make them for me. I mean, I guess this is like kind of him coming to terms with whatever caused him to do that. Did he just find closure in himself? Realizing that he can't get it from someone else, but only from himself. It was a sudden turnaround. But then, like, who am I? Am I just what? I feel like that completely invalidates everything who I am. I am my own person, narrator. You didn't just make me up. What the fuck? He just Uno reversed closure. Because I was like at a point of acceptance. I was like, no, let's move on. I'm my own person. You need to move on from me. And then he's like, okay, I've moved on. I made you up. I'm going to go back to my life now. I don't need you anymore. What? No, I demand, if I'm just a figment of your imagination, then I demand you continue keeping this story going so that I can stay alive. What the fuck? I'm my own person with my own agency. Shit, I regressed back to who I was in the first episode. What a twist! What the fuck? Is the bucket here at least?
What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting.
Thank God.
Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
He's fucking trying to take away my individuality by telling me I'm made up.
Just Stanley and the bucket, off on another thrilling adventure together.
That's right. Trying to race me. We've totally regressed. I'm supposed to be the one who gets the closure. Fuck. He said in his acting voice.
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
There's already someone writing that comment. I just know that there is. Maybe they've already clicked away from the video. This fucking idiot totally doesn't get the point. Why is he so frustrated? Because that's the point.
Still no one was here. Stanley needed the bucket's warmth and comfort now more than ever. Perhaps his boss's office was where he'd find answers.
You know what? I think I will go to the boss's
Staircase,
office.
Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office.
That's cool. We can do that. Maybe I'll go back to the original classical ending.
His manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned
What was
to
it?
discover not an indication of any human life.
Was it?
Crushed by the weight of this, but Stanley guessed the correct code
Oh yeah. See, I've got good memory.
all along. Was the bucket guiding him?
The bucket was guiding me.
This is certainly the most logical explanation.
What is this? It? No, this is just. I've seen this before. I felt like I was getting closer to closure, at least for myself and for the narrator. And now he's just Uno reversed me into what? He's just gonna keep going.
Downward, plummeting towards an unknown fate. It would be all Stanley could do to keep himself together, if not for the bucket.
The bucket is keeping me only marginally sane right now.
Reassuring that in this darkest moment of uncertainty, he would be all right. The bucket is here for you, Stanley. Everything will be fine.
You say that. You say that.
Stanley and the bucket walked straight ahead through the large door that read, Mind Control Facility.
I was ready to go, narrator. I was ready to go. And so
The lights rose
You are
on an
too.
enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible
Right?
secret did this place hold? Stanley and the bucket both wondered to themselves. The monitors jumped to life, and Stanley nearly dropped the bucket in shock. Everyone in the office was being videotaped, monitored like guinea pigs. The bucket had never seen anything like this, and it very nearly burst into tears as Stanley cradled it gently, reassuring it that everything would be fine.
Don't cry, Bucket-chan. Everything will be fine. So the narrator created a fictional scenario for himself where he is being mind controlled and can free himself from that mind control by following the outline of his own creation. To me, that seems like a very, like, sort of extreme coping mechanism for dealing with whatever it is he's dealing with outside of this, but with like a back door into some kind of awareness that tells him this isn't quite healthy. Like, a lot of these endings have been about escaping or shutting things down or something. Like, if we're just a figment or a figly of his imagination, then we've been sort of trying to break our own spell this entire time.
Was the bucket under the mind control facility's influence as well? Had the bucket been told to
No.
do things it didn't wish to do?
No.
What kinds of things does a bucket want to do or not want to do in the first place? These questions raced furiously in Stanley's feeble mind.
Bucket-chan is a salient, powerful organism.
No! He screamed into the bucket. He couldn't accept
No!
his own life in someone else's control. Never! He squeezed the bucket tighter, his one friend in the entire world. At this point, he could trust no one except for the bucket.
That's right.
But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions, happy or sad or content. Walking, eating, working, all of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he and the bucket would dismantle the controls for good. Two best friends, Stanley and the bucket, up against the world. They high-fived in a really cool way, and the bucket made a sassy comment about taking down the system.
Hell yeah. But it's quite telling, no, that the narrator's idea of a escapist reality has this built-in theme of like mind control and shutting that down. Or if you don't go to the mind control, you are in like constant defiance of the rules of this own fictional structure. Like we can either follow the narrator's direction or disobey them. And both are somehow, subconsciously at least, intentional by the narrator. Because they're both like realities that he created for Stanley to make his own decisions in. There's too many layers of this going on. What does it all mean? Maybe it all means fucking nothing. Maybe this is just a bunch of random bullshit. No. No. I can't think like that. Can't think like that. There's still a chance. There's still a chance to find the right kind of closure here. And unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to find it in the sweet embrace of Bucket-chan. No. It has to come
When at last they came to the source
from within.
Of the room's power, Stanley and the bucket knew it was their obligation to put an end to this horrible place and to everything it stood for.
So now what happens if we, as Stanley, the person the narrator created to make decisions for himself, self-executes the system that he designed?
Stanley and the bucket waited in blackness. Was it over? Yes, they had done it. Stanley and the bucket had defeated their greatest and darkest enemy, freed themselves from the tyrannical grip of the evil mind control machine. Freedom was now mere moments away. Excitedly, the two of them began to discuss the kind of life they wanted to live once they stepped through this massive door. The bucket wanted to learn to roller skate. Stanley wanted to sneeze in every country on Earth. Both of them wanted to begin watching a movie, any movie, but then stop it halfway through and begin watching it in reverse from the end. True, it was a simple life they envisioned, but it was one they'd lived together, with one another to lean on, to trust, to support, and... What? Wait. What was happening? Why had the door stopped? Was Stanley and the bucket not about to be freed?
What?
An unbearable silence filled the room, lingering in uncertainty. Until finally the truth hit Stanley square in the face. This building did not want the bucket to leave.
What?
Even the facility itself recognized the incredible
No!
of the bucket.
I was going to be free!
Warmth of the bucket would go to any lengths not to part with the bucket.
No!
Stanley can't leave this place.
No.
Not while he has such a precious bucket in his arms. Not while this building has anything to say about it. Stanley...
What?
He would never again leave this very room. But at least he has the bucket. To be trapped eternally in darkness isn't really so bad, Stanley thought to himself. As long as I have my bucket with me, right? I'll be okay, won't I? Stanley gulped. Very soon now, he was about to find out.
Oh my God. I actually am trapped in here. I can't even escape with my only friend in the world. It's kind of interesting, actually, the relationship between narrator and Stanley. It's kind of similar to the relationship between Stanley and Bucket. Maybe Stanley is to the narrator what the Bucket is to Stanley. This sort of like abstract coping device that both gives you comfort but significantly limits you as well. Like, this is fun for the narrator to like come up with Stanley and this labyrinth of things for him to do, but it's also like probably bad coping. You know, it's probably like disruptive escapism that maybe at one time was healthy but has become a way to avoid making his own decisions. And for Stanley, having the Bucket in his arms is sort of bad coping for not having his own way of grounding himself. There's fucking layers to this shit, is what there is. But I also thought the narrator said, like, I'll give you one more run. This isn't one more run. I'm doing the same shit. Like, it really doesn't end. It really doesn't end.
Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps
I don't know.
Stanley just smiled. Anywhere they went together would be Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
Stanley, narrator.
This was not the correct way to the meeting room.
Can't you both see
Stanley had felt the bucket
how unhealthy this is?
telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be.
You're both so highly dependent on getting this
To
need
be correct? Was this no? Never mind.
met by each other.
Wrong.
Like,
Stanley
the narrator was so
to
close.
go back to the meeting room,
He and I were so close to separating.
said the bucket.
Go to the meeting room. Go somewhere else. The cargo lift, yes. Go there. Go to the cargo lift.
We were so close to like, I've accepted that I don't need the narrator and he doesn't need me. Like, why are we doing this again? This is so toxic. This is how so many relationships fail to end naturally. It's great.
Good,
It's great.
said the bucket.
It's great depiction.
Now ride the lift all the way to the top. There's something up there I need you to do.
Stanley did not question why or how this bucket was speaking to him. It should have alarmed him, of course, because buckets can't talk. But Stanley chose not to think about this obvious fact. He was firmly convinced that the bucket had spoken to him, and he unthinkingly did whatever the bucket asked.
Guys,
Here.
Said the bucket.
Go into this dark room over here.
Stanley once
this
again
is saying right.
blindly.
I kind of have to see
Now
though.
pick up the phone.
What happens?
Oh, hold on. Why did you unplug the phone?
What happens if I go back
Were
to
you
the
trying
first
to
ending
resist
I
the
ever got?
bucket's orders? Stanley, I was joking. Obviously, the bucket isn't talking to you and telling you to do things.
The
Buckets
insanity
can't
ending.
talk.
It was a joke. Don't you get the joke? It's funny, Stanley. A talking bucket.
Can't you see? Oh, goodness. I must have really bungled up the delivery if you actually took me seriously. Where did I mess up the joke? Should I have paused for longer or spoken quicker? Comedic timing is so difficult. I wish I were better at it, but there isn't exactly an instructional video on comedy that one can watch to fully... Oh, wait, yes, there is.
Okay, here we go.
Right here. Let's take a look.
What is comedic timing? What is comedic timing? How does it work? How long should it last? How can it be used to effectively silence your political enemies? And more importantly, can it be taught in its entirety within 90 seconds? Thankfully, the answer to all of these questions is yes. Let's dive deeper.
Okay.
If you've ever told a joke or made someone laugh, in all likelihood, you did it while standing 50 to 80 centimeters from them in a room of no more than 76 degrees Fahrenheit, with one of your arms raised straight upward at a 15-degree angle from your body. These are the optimal conditions for good comedic timing.
Okay.
To begin the joke,
That checks out.
start by stating and spelling your name. Next, provide a brief synopsis of the joke, including the specific times at which the recipient of the joke will laugh, and then spell out your name a second time. With these steps complete, it's time to begin the humor. Speak the entire joke in no more than 18 seconds and no less than 13 and a half, pausing only for bathroom breaks when necessary. When the joke has concluded, it is customary to inform your listener that the joke is over by declaring in your loudest possible voice, "I'm Dunny with the funny." Let's practice screaming, "I'm Dunny with the funny" now.
Okay, it's actually good. I'm Dunny with the funny.
This saying is a perfect example of expectations management, which is the cornerstone of good comedy.
And good
Finally,
therapy.
it's time to hand out surveys. Collecting hard data from your audience on how rapt they were throughout the joke is the only way to grow or learn as a comedian.
I guess therapy and comedy are the same thing.
10 pages long, and should include the same question reprinted several times, just to ensure the survey taker is actually paying attention and not simply filling in answers at random. And that's all there is. With these strategies at your disposal, you'll have audiences doubled over in laughter and even tripled over in laughter in no time at all. Just remember to let them stop laughing at some point, you gut-busting little scamp. After all, we're each of us needed on the front lines of the war to fight the 12-legged invader who threatens
What?
existence, and to very likely die in a hailstorm of bullets and mandibles. All of us must be prepared to give our lives to this noble cause.
Okay, I'm ready for that.
Must do after us, and their children after them. Godspeed, and may Earth reign supreme.
What?
Hey, goodness, this video is a little outdated, isn't it? Well, no matter. I think the fundamentals of proper comedic timing are still as relevant today as they were back then. So with that in mind, I believe the only way forward is for us to return to the two doors and walk through all of this again, so I can try telling my story with more appropriate comedic delivery. Come on,
Going back again. My dude, can you and I just move on for once from all of this? Is there nowhere new for us to go in this relationship?
I can feel it. This time, I'm really going to nail the delivery. You'll be in stitches. A talking bucket, you'll say? How ridiculous. How absurd. What a hilarious concept. The king of comedy. That's what you'll call me. Thank goodness we had the instructional video. Otherwise, who knows where we'd be right now. Well, I wouldn't be the king of comedy, that's for sure. The bucket spoke to Stanley.
Spoke.
The bucket spoke. Oh, I'll figure it out on the fly. No need to overthink things.
My dude, seriously, needs some help. We both need some help. This is insane. Like, Stanley, the bucket, the narrator, this whole fucking thing is just is so unwound at this point. Okay, I guess we're going back.
Here we go. You ready? When Stanley and the bucket came to a set of two open doors, they entered the door on the left.
Oh, really? Fuck.
No. You were supposed to go through the door on the right, leading back to the phone. Did you not even look at the instructional video? I think this is all covered very clearly. There's no way I can make the comedic timing work now. It's done. The joke is completely done and over. It's all
oh my God.
your fault, Stanley. I'm going to be ridiculed in the community of other joke writers. I'm going to be shamed at every one of our meetings from now on. All because you couldn't watch a simple video and take a hint. Are you proud of yourself for
We're exactly back to where we started.
Here we go. You ready? When Stanley and the bucket came to a set of two open doors...
I just want it to be over. I just want it to be over. Please just let this be over. We've said everything that we can to each other, narrator. This relationship is... There's no more room left for each of us. Not with the bucket involved.
We're back at the phone already? No. What's going on? There was supposed to be several rooms leading up to this. There was supposed to be a build-up to this.
I'm tired, boss.
A dramatic display of remarkable comedic wit, which culminates in this scene with the phone. But now the timing's completely off. The joke will never land. Well, not the way it was meant to. And it's all my fault. I must have forgotten that the phone room comes immediately after the two doors room. What an egregious mistake. I've made a fool of myself. I don't deserve the title of King of Comedy. I'm nothing. I'm not even the lowliest joke-telling whelp. I think I need
No.
to watch that instructional video again.
No!
Surely that will help me improve my...
I swear.
Stanley, you love the bucket so much it's like you...
Oh my God, we're back here.
Possessions pale in comparison. Yes. Well, let me try that
Wait.
again, Stanley.
What did I say? Credits!
You are
Resolution!
over how unabashedly in love with a bucket you are. No?
Oh, it's so perfect. This was the first ending I got.
Pale with shame. Pale with
Maybe-
shame. Pale...
Maybe this should be the last one.
Word to describe a bucket. Stanley, this bucket is so metal. I think I saw it playing guitar. No. We're getting away from making fun.
It's just sad. I can't see him like this anymore.
I'm no good at these jokes.
I've grown to appreciate the narrator, and it hurts me to see him like this.
Exactly what it is. That's what will make me the king of comedy again. More instructional videos.
And you'll hear this as well from, like, you know, one person who's kind of moved on from a relationship and the other who hasn't. You'll hear that a lot. It hurts me to see you like this. I still care about you. I don't have space for you in my life anymore, but seeing someone still be attached to something you no longer are to them, it's painful.
Let's see.
God, there's just nothing left for us, narrator. There can't just be more of this. Like, I'm just gonna keep getting the bucket and trying different things. Yeah, I don't know. I guess there really isn't a firm point of closure in this game, and that's just something that I'm gonna have to accept. You know, as someone who, at least when it comes to narratives, likes to sort of wrap things up neatly for myself and for these series. At some point, you just have to decide that it's over. And I don't know. This may be that point. I feel like at this point, I've said everything I can to sort of draw parallels between the narrator and Stanley and how those things represent what we see in real life. So I think this may be where I finish things, which may not be the most satisfying conclusion to the series, but sometimes life doesn't have the most satisfying conclusion either. Well, yeah, I think this is where the Stanley Parable ends. Unfortunately, I just don't have it in me to keep doing more of the endings, knowing that there isn't something definitive that I'm looking forward to. But well, at least now I can finally move on to the other game that is connected to this, which is the Beginner's Guide. And I can finally respond to all of those many recommendations to check that out, because I did say I would sort of see if I can finish the Stanley Parable first before I get to that. But I guess finishing it just means stopping. So yeah, I guess that's going to be it for Therapist Plays The Stanley Parable. I hope you've enjoyed the series, despite it not really having a very good conclusion. But maybe that's the point. Actually, all this time I've been like, that's the point, and maybe the game's been trying to say that to me this entire time too. Weird how that works out sometimes, as long as it all wraps up neatly thematically. Well, either way, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you soon for the Beginner's Guide. Take care, everyone. Okay. Well, I guess that's really it. Oh, wait. What is this? What is this? Wait a second. Oh, there is more. Wait. Okay. Fuck all that. Closure be damned. I don't want to accept that there is no closure. This has got to be something. Come on. There's got to be something here. It's an epilogue, for fuck's sake. Many, many years later. Oh, we're back in the skip button desert. What is happening? Are we free? Did we finally make it out? Why did this suddenly become so, like, artistic? I feel like I'm back in the savoring room. Memory zone. This is where we were at the most contentious point with the narrator in our sort of relationship, when we realized that, like, everything we've been doing to each other was just leading to more and more divisiveness. It was the moment we finally drove each other apart. But I don't know. Is this all that's left? If Stanley and the narrator are not meant to be? In loving memory. Like so many, I enjoyed my time with the original Stanley Parable, which underscores how truly disappointed I am with its sequel. Where the first game teemed with originality, the Stanley Parable 2 is dull, uninspired, and often insulting to its fan base. Rather than expand on what made the first game enjoyable, the sequel veers off into territory nobody asked for. An infinitely deep hole? Who cares? Why are there new endings? Where are the new endings? What about enjoyable bits from the Stanley Parable 1, like the adventure line? Instead, we get an uninspired side quest collecting figurines. Even this diversion feels incomplete. Collecting all the figurines gives you nothing. I must say, though, I found the bucket to be quite comforting. Of course. Even in spite, we can't forget the comforting embrace of the bucket. Okay. I mean, this whole thing, the sequel, was like kind of a metaphor for giving something that didn't quite work a second try. Wasn't Cookie 9 like one of those Steam reviews as well? No more spin-offs, no more sequels. The Stanley Parable launched a massive success in 2013. Its creators made plans to build the property into an entire franchise. But a disastrous critical and commercial reception to the Stanley Parable 2 has prompted the developers to rethink their ambitions, as outlined in a press release they published today. It's clear that more Stanley Parable is just not what the fans want, reads the press release. We thought that we had a vision for the series that players would be excited about, and yet it turns out this could not have been farther from the truth. The press release goes on to promise to preserve the artistic integrity of the original game, to stop assaulting fans with our reckless and insulting creative visions. The word sorry appears more than 25 times in the press release. Okay. Oh, the gym button.
Jim.
Aw, I'm like having my own memory zone now, but like a sad one.
Jim.
It's kind of lost all meaning without like
Jim.
bothering the narrator. Damn, I miss the guy now.
Jim.
No, I don't want to hear another Jim for the rest of my life. Ah, it's also hollow. Where is he? Narrator? Are you there? What is this? Hello again. Oh my god, it's settings person. It's nice to see you. But it's terrible to learn that there will never be another Stanley Parable game. Did you read what the developer said? Preserve the integrity of the franchise. What nonsense! The Stanley Parable is not sacred. We do not need to protect it. Screw the legacy. Let's keep making Stanley Parable games until the sun explodes. Let's run this franchise into the ground. Let's drag it through the mud and back. And if people hate it, who cares? You see, that was the narrator's problem. He was so obsessed with what people thought of his work. Don't make his mistakes. Don't cling to the legacy. Let it burn. It's not hard. In fact, let me show you. Together we're going to make the Stanley Parable 3. It's simple. All we do is change the number in the game's title screen. I also really need a dumb subtitle for the game, something loud and gaudy. Go ahead, try combining some random words together to make a new title for our game. Okay. The Stanley Parable 3. Danger of Stanley's Big Hole Punch. I mean, I gotta give a shout out to the hole. The Stanley Parable 3. Stanley's Big Hole Punch. It's absurd. I love it. Every time you restart the game, we'll advance the number of the sequel by 1, and then we'll pick a new subtitle. That way the No, it has to end. I am finished with it. This isn't even Actor Brady anymore. Like, I actually want to be finished. And nothing in the game itself will change when you do this either. Adding more content sounds like work. No need to do that. It'll just be the same content recycled again and again and again with a new title screen. No, I don't want that. What do you say? Should we go forward with this plan? I like it, but you have to have a say as well. The thing is, as sad as it is to come to this like dystopian future where there is no Stanley, there is no office, there is no narrator, I feel like at least that means that the narrator put to rest this thing that he created and got back to his life. You know, started making decisions for himself again. If it means that, like, the narrator can only move on when Stanley doesn't exist anymore, then I don't think it's right for me to just say, yeah, let's do it. Let's keep going. let's just make Stanley Parable 3 and keep the dream alive. You know, I've described the narrator as like a wounded child, as like a toxic partner, a perfectionist, someone who projects his insecurities on someone else, and, you know, just a very difficult personality. And I would prefer that, like, he not have to live with those things. But I feel like the environment that we're in, being in the Stanley Parable itself, is like where those personality quirks sort of flourish. If I end things here, maybe he actually gets to live his own life away from us. You know, the truth is, like, one of the needs that he has, I guess, was to go back to making his own decisions, and we are in direct contrast to that. If we exist, then we're making decisions for him based on his own construct. And so for myself, as Stanley, maybe closure means getting a need for independence from the narrator by letting things end here, and he gets his need met for himself by, well, not needing us to make his decisions anymore. So that's what I say. I don't want to do the Stanley Parable 3.